We have almost 1,700 people a day dying from cancer in this country. That is about 70 people an hour. If you have type 2 diabetes and you're obese, you're at super high risk for cancer.
You are eating something daily that is slowly and silently killing you. Yes, we are talking about processed foods. Processed foods are hazardous to our health. From preservatives to food colors, they contain several harmful additives that can cause several diseases leading to cancer. This deteriorating journey starts with obesity, where refined sugars and carbs are leading from the front.
So you want to get cancer, you want to get demented, you want to get a type 2 diabetes, make sure that you are obese and you keep your blood sugars really, really high. And then you'll be able to get into the crowd of those that have all these chronic diseases. And that's another thing. Obesity has now replaced smoking as one of the top risk factors in getting cancer. So, and if people were really, really, really interested in preventing cancer, we would not have an obesity epidemic.
Meet Dr. Thomas Seyfried is a well-known researcher and professor of biology at Boston College. He is primarily recognized for his work in the field of cancer metabolism and has authored several influential papers and books on the topic. His research suggests that excessive consumption of processed foods can contribute to various health issues, including metabolic disorders, insulin resistance, and cancer. He also believes that cancer cells rely heavily on fermentation fuels like glucose as a source of energy to fuel their rapid growth.
So then the question is, well, how do I prevent cancer? Well, if you can keep your mitochondria healthy. Well, how do you keep your mitochondria healthy? Avoid highly processed carbohydrate foods, do exercise, this kind of thing. In other words, now that we know the plan, who is willing to adopt the plan to their lifestyle? And it's hard because every corner we have a fast foods.
Around 184,000 people worldwide die annually due to diseases related to high sugar consumption, including those from refined sugar. In the United States, approximately 25,000 deaths per year are attributed to the same cause. These figures encompass deaths from diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, and certain cancers linked to high sugar intake. But how can simple sugar kill so many people? Well, high sugar intake is a major cause of obesity, leading to type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, liver damage, and cancer. Sometimes it is also known as white poison. In this video, we will tell you how people become addicted to carbohydrates and sugar, and in what ways these processed foods are killing us. We will also suggest tips to avoid these harmful pleasures to enjoy a healthy life. But remember, the information provided in this video is just for guidance, and not an alternative to medicine or medical procedures. Please refer to your healthcare provider for a personalized approach before making any changes to your diet plan. So let's begin. Our ancestors lived in a world where life was natural. Sweetness was a rare and precious commodity. Food processing techniques were natural and whole, and healthy carbs were abundant. Due to natural food resources, our diet was free from refined sugars and carbs.
So the foods of our ancestors were very low in carbohydrates, putting us in nutritional ketosis. And that's why cancer in Aboriginal folks that still are on the planet, cancer is almost unknown, unheard of in these Aboriginal tribes of people who live according to their traditional ways, which was no high carbohydrate foods, a lot of exercise, their mitochondria maintained in a super energy state, and cancer does not exist.
Fast forward to today, and our relationship with food has drastically changed. We are facing a pandemic where processed foods have encircled us from all sides, causing fatal diseases, including cancer.
Cancer is being caused by our Western diet and lifestyle. So that's what's causing cancer. So what is it in our Western diet and lifestyle that's allowing our mitochondria to become damaged, leading to dysregulated cell growth? And there's a whole range of things. Minimal exercise, massive amounts of highly processed carbohydrate foods in our diet, stress, mental stress of the kinds of jobs that we're doing. So you put all that together, and we put ourselves at risk, not only for cancer, but cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's disease.
Excess sugar and carbohydrate consumption has pushed the whole world into a well of diseases. In 1700, an average person consumed 4.9 grams of sugar every day. Today, that number has skyrocketed to 35 grams per day. The average American now consumes a staggering 130 pounds of sugar annually. Humans are born craving sugar, and many of them do to such an extent that they can be called sugar addicts. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. If you find our videos helpful, please support us by dropping your comments in the comment section.
The foods that are being engineered, highly processed carbs that are being engineered, are very tasty to a large number of people. They're cheap, they're convenient, and they're tasty. And we evolved to like very sweet carbohydrate foods. It's just they weren't available in the environment. Now they're available in an abundance, and we pay a price for that.
Processed foods having high refined carbs and sugars have addictive properties. Some people have a strong addiction to sweet tea, often consuming multiple cups throughout the day. They may feel irritable or restless if they miss their regular intake of sweet tea and find it difficult to reduce their consumption. Others may find themselves constantly craving treats such as chocolates, cakes, cookies, or ice cream, where individuals become dependent on the carbs and sugar found in these processed foods.
Your brain is addicted to carbs.
Yes.
Some people will try to not eat for 3 or 4 days. You start shaking. I mean, it's like, as I said, it's not easy.
So when they try to cut off these processed foods, they experience withdrawal symptoms such as headaches or irritability. Do you have any such addiction? Mention in the comments section below.
But we're confronted with delicious foods that may not be so healthy. The food industry has gone to tweak every molecule in the food that we eat, sensitizes a taste bud to make us want this. So our brains are glucose addicted.
While sugar itself is not an addictive substance like drugs or alcohol, research suggests that its consumption can lead to behaviors and physiological responses similar to addiction. This appeal of sugar lies in its ability to activate the dopamine system, which is associated with pleasure and reward. When consumed, sugar triggers the release of dopamine, providing a temporary feel-good sensation. This addictive nature of sugar and carbohydrates has implications for overall health. They can cause obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, liver damage, and cancer. The World Health Organization recommends limiting daily sugar intake to less than 10% of total calories, with further benefits observed at intake levels below 5%. When consumed regularly, processed foods cause several serious health issues in our bodies. Number 1. Obesity. The first and obvious result of excessive sugar and carb intake is obesity.
And that's another thing. Obesity has now replaced smoking as one of the top risk factors in getting cancer.
Primarily, processed foods are dense in calories but lack essential nutrients like vitamins, minerals, and fiber. Therefore, consuming foods and beverages high in refined sugar and carbs leads to an excessive intake of calories without corresponding nutritional benefits. Research shows that high sugar diets contribute to overall calorie surplus, which is a primary driver of weight gain and obesity. Secondly, high sugar diets can disrupt hormones that regulate hunger and satiety, such as leptin and ghrelin. This disruption can lead to increased appetite and cravings, contributing to overeating and weight gain. It can also stimulate the liver to convert fructose into fat. This fat can then be stored in the liver or distributed throughout the body as visceral fat, contributing to obesity. Number 2. Diabetes. Obesity is recognized as a significant risk factor contributing to the development of type 2 diabetes. This chronic condition, characterized by insulin resistance and impaired glucose regulation, results from complex interactions between genetic predisposition and lifestyle factors, with diet playing a crucial role. When we consume sugar, particularly in the form of sucrose, which is table sugar or high fructose corn syrup, commonly found in processed foods and sugary beverages, our body initiates a series of metabolic processes to manage the sudden influx of glucose. The pancreas releases insulin, a hormone responsible for transporting glucose from the bloodstream into cells where it can be used as energy or stored for future use. However, overconsumption of sugar over time can disturb this system. If we continue the intake, cells become less responsive to insulin signals, leading the pancreas to produce more insulin to compensate. This cycle eventually strains pancreatic beta cells, which can lead to their dysfunction and decreased insulin production. In a different approach, excessive fructose can also lead to increased liver fat accumulation and altered lipid metabolism, contributing to insulin resistance independent of its caloric content.
People have done it in humans as well. When you don't eat food and carbohydrates, insulin naturally goes down. carbohydrates that trigger for having insulin, insulin-like growth factor, and all these other things. So when you don't eat for like a week or so, you become very insulin sensitive.
Research studies have provided compelling evidence linking sugar consumption with the risk of developing diabetes. For instance, a systematic review published in the British Medical Journal analyzed data from 17 cohorts and found a significant positive association between sugar-sweetened beverage intake and the incidence of diabetes. As of the latest available data, it is estimated that approximately 463 million adults aged 20 to 79 years worldwide were living with diabetes in 2019. Among those, the vast majority have type 2 diabetes, which accounts for about 90 to 95% of all diabetes cases. In terms of mortality, diabetes, particularly type 2 diabetes, is associated with significant morbidity and mortality due to its chronic complications such as cardiovascular disease, kidney failure, and diabetic neuropathy. Globally, diabetes was estimated to be responsible for 4.2 million deaths in 2019, according to the International Diabetes Federation. Number 3. Cardiovascular disease. Other than insulin problems, excessive use of processed foods are a significant risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Consuming high levels of refined sugar and carbs causes rapid spikes in blood glucose levels. This triggers the pancreas to release insulin to help cells absorb glucose for energy. Over time, repeated spikes in blood glucose can lead to insulin resistance, which is a key risk factor for cardiovascular disease. High consumption of harmful carbohydrates can also elevate triglyceride levels and decrease HDL cholesterol, a good cholesterol, in the blood. This condition predisposes individuals to atherosclerosis, a condition where fatty deposits build up inside arteries, narrowing them and restricting blood flow. Atherosclerosis is a major contributor to heart attacks and strokes. Moreover, sugar can promote inflammation in the body, which plays a crucial role in the development of endothelial dysfunction, where the inner lining of blood vessels becomes less able to regulate blood flow and pressure. Processed foods also promote oxidative stress, where there is an imbalance between free radicals and antioxidants in the body. Oxidative stress can damage cells, proteins, and DNA, exacerbating cardiovascular and cancer risks. Other than these factors, excessive refined sugars and carbs can develop a cluster of conditions, including high blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess abdominal fat, and abnormal cholesterol levels. Number 4. Liver damage. Eating processed foods regularly can lead to significant liver damage as well. When we consume these foods, the liver metabolizes fructose differently from glucose. Unlike glucose, which is metabolized throughout the body, fructose is primarily metabolized in the liver. Excess fructose intake overwhelms the liver's capacity to process it efficiently, leading to increased production of triglycerides and other fats within the liver cells. This process contributes directly to the development of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, where fat accumulates in the liver cells. Research has shown that high fructose intake promotes lipogenesis in the liver. A study published in the Journal of Hepatology highlighted that excessive fructose consumption induces hepatic steatosis and inflammation, key features of fatty liver disease. Furthermore, fructose metabolism in the liver leads to insulin resistance, which promotes further fat accumulation, exacerbating fatty liver disease progression. In addition to directly contributing to fat accumulation, high carbohydrate and sugar consumption can also induce systemic inflammation, which plays a crucial role in the progression of liver damage. Chronic inflammation in the liver can lead to more severe conditions, such as non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, characterized by inflammation, liver cell injury, and fibrosis. Non-alcoholic steatohepatitis can progress to cirrhosis and liver failure if left untreated. Number 5. Cancer. According to Dr. Seyfried, sugar directly is not a cancer-causing food, but it's cancer-promoting.
So sugar doesn't cause cancer, but sugar can cause systemic inflammation. And inflammation damages respiration, and damaged respiration is the origin of cancer.
Where excess sugar and carbs cause obesity, heart disease, liver damage, and type 2 diabetes, studies also suggest that high sugar intake negatively affects survival rates in breast and colon cancer patients. Sugar isn't just empty calories, it's toxic. Glucose consumption accelerates cell aging, and excess sugar affects memory and cognitive processing.
The other fellow had melanoma from Norway, and he could actually see the lesions on his leg get bigger the more carbs he took in. And when he stopped the carbs, he could actually see the lesions going down. I mean, it was like he had the pictures of going up and going down. It's unbelievable. So he said, listen, if I want that tumor out of my body, I got to stop taking these carbohydrates. So he switched over his diet to meats and all kinds of things, but very, very low in carbohydrates. And he's fine.
Processed foods, particularly in the form of refined carbohydrates and added sugars like sucrose and high fructose corn syrup, influence cancer risk and progression in several ways. One of the primary reasons is its impact on insulin levels. Consuming high amounts of sugar triggers the release of insulin-like growth factor, a hormone that promotes cell growth that can contribute to the proliferation of cancer cells, as cancer cells often have insulin receptors that allow them to take up glucose and grow more rapidly. Moreover, a high intake of refined sugar can cause chronic inflammation, another factor implicated in cancer development. Inflammation not only supports tumor cell survival, but also facilitates the formation of new blood vessels that tumors need to grow and spread cancer to other parts of the body. Research has highlighted specific types of cancer that may be particularly influenced by high sugar intake. A study published in Cancer Research indicated that sugar intake could affect the molecular and biological processes that contribute to breast cancer development and progression. Now, what are some ways to prevent cancer risk? Well, Dr. Thomas Seyfried encourages the prevention and management of cancer through a metabolic approach, emphasizing that cancer is primarily a metabolic disease rather than a genetic one.
So all the normal cells of the body, brain cells, liver cells, they all can burn fatty acids or ketone bodies.
Right.
Once the patient is in therapeutic ketosis, then you can lower blood sugars down to very, very extremely low levels. I mean, 0.5 millimole, 9 milligrams per deciliter. I mean, you can push blood sugars down to incredibly low levels. But the brain and the rest of the cells are protected because they can burn fatty acids and ketones. And going back to fermentation, fatty acids and ketone bodies are non-fermentable. They cannot be fermented, so they become non-fuels for the tumor cell.
He recommends adopting a ketogenic diet, which is low in carbohydrates and high in healthy fats, to reduce glucose availability and lower insulin levels, thereby starving cancer cells of their primary energy source. He also supports calorie restriction and intermittent fasting to further reduce glucose levels and induce metabolic stress on cancer cells. His approach aims to create a metabolic environment that is unfavorable for cancer cell growth while promoting overall health. Other than that, he also suggests reducing the intake of processed foods.
But I think you really probably have to really restrict the kinds of foods that make your blood sugar go up. I think that's the safest way.
Processed foods contain sugars to enhance flavor, prolong shelf life, or improve texture. Choosing whole unprocessed foods ensures you get the natural nutrients without added sugars. Focus on a diet rich in whole foods. For instance, replace sugary breakfast cereals with oatmeal topped with fresh fruits and nuts. In addition to that, sugary drinks, including sodas, fruit juices, and sweetened teas and coffees, are major sources of added sugars. Cutting these out of your diet can significantly reduce your sugar intake. Drink water infused with slices of fruits like lemon, lime, or berries for a refreshing and flavorful option. Snacks can be a significant source of added sugars, especially when it comes to processed snacks like cookies, granola bars, and candy. Opt for whole fruits, nuts, seeds, or vegetables with hummus as snacks. If you crave something sweet, consider making homemade snacks like energy balls made with dates, nuts, and cocoa powder, which are nutritious and naturally sweet. To opt for a healthy life, prepare your meals and snacks at home. When baking, you can often reduce the amount of sugar called for in recipes by 1/3 to 1/2 without significantly affecting the taste or texture. Experiment with using natural sweetness from fruits like apples, bananas, or dried fruits in your recipes. These alternatives not only cut down on unhealthy carbs and sugar, but also add fiber, vitamins, and minerals to your diet.